everyone, my name is Chris, this is my whiteboard, and welcome to Christacular. In this episode I'm going to talk about the other models of time flow as opposed to the one I've talked about in the last episode, where there's only one past, one present and one future. Let's get started. To keep in mind what we've talked about last time, it was a linear time flow with one past, one present and one future. And if you remember, when I've drawn it in green, it was able to be influenced by your presence in each of those times. Anyway, it's only going to be a small remembrance here in the corner. Sorry if you can hear the dogs barking, they just got out and are upset at the cars. Anyway, so that's that. I'm trying to get everything else I couldn't talk about in the first video in this video, so I think there's at least two other models of flow of time I'm going to consider throughout all my videos. The first one can either be drawn from bottom to top or from left to right. I prefer left to right because it's easier. And it starts in the present. I will work on my handwriting, I'm sorry. Now from the present, you go until you have a decision to make. From there it's tricky. Depending on how many decisions are open to you or are presented to you, you might have only two possible outcomes. But that's not very likely because not only a decision influences the outcome of the time, but also every little coincidence that happens throughout the whole universe at the very same time as you take that decision. So you can't only consider two separate time streams that run parallelly to each other after you made a decision, but you need to think about it as basically millions and billions
and billions and billions and billions and billions and billions
of time streams going parallelly into the future. So not very effective, but maybe you can see it. There's a lot. Of course, you could only assume that your decision alone influences the outcome of anything past that point. Then you'd have from there only two, but if you come to a new crossroads, you'd have more and more. And it'll be, well, up to infinity, depending on how many decisions you have to take throughout the time until you arrive in the future. That's supposed to mean future, I'm sorry. And then you'd have actually an indefinite number of future, not only one set future, because every new decision has a new future as an outcome. So now the tricky part here is about traveling through the times. You could say that every decision could function as an anchor point, so when you try to travel into the future or in the past, you go to the latest decision or whatever decision you want. But if you consider that all of this happens in only one single plane of existence, or well, one single world or universe, how would you travel through that then exactly? Because would you be able to jump between, let's use blue for that, jump between the time flows and back and forth and all of that? Or would you have to stick with the one decision you've originally landed on and only be able to take those crossroads further down the road? Oh gosh, that's tricky. Now you could only also consider that every single decision you've taken has created a new parallel universe, but then it wouldn't really be time traveling, but world hopping, if you can call it that. So if each decision created a new universe with a new flow of time, you'd have endless parallel universes next to each other. Each one of those is a parallel universe correlating to a decision you've made somewhere down the road earlier. So in theory, you'd be jumping through the worlds, but would you only be able to go from one to the one right next to it? Or could you just go mad and go wherever the hell you want and back and forth and all that? I'm sorry. Yeah. Could that be considered a paradoxon, or is it just a lot of possibilities? Either way, if it's all in one plane of existence, you'd have to consider whether or not you could go back to the very first decision and then choose the other path, or if you could go from decision to decision, back and forth, however often you like, and also to whatever decision you want. How would a time machine like that even work? Either way, that's actually one of the more fun models of time travel I like to discuss, because it's literally endless possibilities, because it just becomes so big. It's not just one straight flow where everything happens in an order, because every second creates a new universe or a new flow of time, depending on the tiniest bit of change that happens within that millisecond. But the time travel aspect in that one is not as easy as in the first one I've talked about, as you may have noticed already. But that one's really fun to talk about, I think, because let's take for example the manga Orange I've read recently. It's a really good one, but it's sad. The main character in that manga receives a letter from herself from 10 years in the future, asking her past/present self, the one we accompany, to do things exactly as she says so she can change the future. Now, in that one, I think they work with parallel time streams, time flows that have already happened, or you could call it a parallel universe or world, whatever you like. But let's say on the bottom one, the thing happens that they want to not happen. And on the top one, it doesn't. So, if a letter from, I'll use green again, sorry. If a letter from the future came to that point to change the outcomes, would that, in theory, eradicate the bad timeline, or would the bad timeline still happen because it already happened? Because otherwise the girl from the future could not have sent a letter back. But it would also mean that that would also not mean that. It would prove that what I said earlier, that multiple futures exist at the same time. But if that's the case, wouldn't multiple presents exist at the same time as well? Now, it's a spoiler now, but the thing they want to not happen is that one of their friends kills himself. So if you consider that there's actually multiple presents, not only up to a decision but all the time, because the present used to be the future and is only an outcome of all the things that happened in the past. If there's multiple presents and someone from the future sends a letter back, how would they know which present the letter would land in? It could be a letter where the guy that kills himself never even existed in the first place, or never got in contact with the main character, so the letter would be completely useless. And the future where the guy kills himself would still exist. Yeah. That's only a small example of what kind of friends on tangents I'm going to go on. As soon as I finish trying to explain the different models of time flow, I'm going to consider in my future videos and focus more on special, well, not special, but exact movies, books, shows and series that have time travel elements in them. Yeah. Now what I forgot to mention in the earlier video, well, this one's actually a bitch. It's really fun to talk about, but you can't only view that one in one plane of existence. You'd have to consider the first one in combination with actually, the third model of time flow. It's a type of combination of those two. If you consider that their past, present and future are set, they exist, only one of them exists, no parallel ones. But what if parallel universes exist where the decisions were made differently than in the original one? That's where that theory comes in a bit, at least, but not exactly as the second model of time flow. I'm talking a lot of gibberish right now. I'm sorry, I'm trying. I'll get better. I'll maybe write some script so everything makes more sense and is in order and all of that. It'll happen in the future. Jokes. Yeah, that's it all I wanted to talk about from that one. One question I gotta ask is, can you possibly, if there's only one present, travel from the present along the different time streams and, well, go into the future? Because, or well, in what future would you end up in if there's multiple? Also, there could be only one future, but that would mean that every single decision there is meaningless, or some decisions have met a dead end that resulted in some paradox, which ripped the whole space-time fabric apart, so the timelines wouldn't exist anymore. And there's only one possible future. It's like a maze, I think, because everything is a dead end except one path of decisions leads to the future. That is, if you consider that there's only one future after all. But it wouldn't be fun if all the other decisions didn't have any impact at all and just resulted in a cease of existence, if you can call it that. Sorry.
Okay.
I gotta stop apologizing. Anyway, one present, multiple futures due to multiple timelines existing consecutively? Not. Well, at the same time as each other. That one's really a fun one to talk about, actually. All of them are fun. But I think that's it for this video. I'll probably notice some other things I wanted to talk about in these videos, and maybe I'll make another follow-up, or I'll just delete the other ones and make a redo of them, or I'll just leave them up and tape myself in the future. But anyway, that's it for this video, and if you enjoy my senseless rambling with no real substance, please like, comment, subscribe, stick around, and please do tell me what kind of, well, not what kind of, but any specific movie titles, book titles, shows, mangas, comics, anything you want me to talk about that has time travel elements in them, so I can rant about them a bit and try to understand, well, time travel a bit better. Yeah, thanks for sticking around. Bye!